So goal for today is more like, I mean, we started talking about this a little bit last week, but I had another conversation with Jiggy Lou about like shoulder position and how we train back muscles and everything. So there's a few things I want to go over. It's like kind of like the basics of the anatomy that we see with shoulder stuff, like why we get shoulder issues, I think generally in our gym, but also just generally for people lifting. We'll talk a little bit about why, you know, maybe shoulders back and down cue isn't the best cue for a lot of people and the problems that it causes. And then we'll go over to the bench and we'll talk about like bench supported rows and how you can adjust all these positions to like target different muscles. So if you wanted to build a bigger back, like how would you row differently now that we understand kind of how these shoulder blades play into like going overhead and stuff like that. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Feel like it could be useful? Awesome. All right. Okay, so if we look at these two, so this is just like the thing that you have to understand about like shoulder blade and like glenohumeral movement. So like anytime you're raising the arm overhead, is you want to kind of see it as like, I think we think of it as shoulder, right? But it's two different joints. It's like what's happening at the shoulder blade, the scapula, and how does it move? And then what happens with the humerus basically in like the socket area there that's made by like the shoulder and the collarbone and everything else, right? And so there's two separate joints, and so we can have problems at either one of those that's causing things. So to just say like my shoulder is messed up, you have to dig deeper and figure out what's going on. Is it a shoulder blade issue or is it a glenohumeral issue? And so you want to think of the shoulder blade as like the foundation. So it's like if it's not getting movement properly, if it doesn't have enough mobility, the arm will never be able to get fully overhead or it's going to start causing some problems, all right? So the people who are like the diehards about this, about shoulder health, which are the people who work with MLB players. So like the people I like go to and have their courses on is Eric Cressy and Mike Reinhold. And this is what they talk about is the foundation of their teachings is always upward rotation of the shoulder blade. It has to have enough upward rotation to give the actual arm joint an ability to go fully overhead. If this is compromised, you can never get into overhead positions, and then you're going to start to overstress some of the muscular structures in here. We're just going to focus on shoulder blade stuff today. We're not even going to get into like what's happening at the humeral head and everything, okay? And so like when we're trying to move the shoulder blade into upward rotation, there's three main muscles that do that. You want to just think of it as a triangle and the three different points. We've talked about this a little bit before, but the upper trap is pulling that tip over towards the neck. The lower trap is pulling this down, and then the serratus anterior, and that's the muscle that looks like fingers that's right along the rib cage here, that pulls the shoulder blade along the rib cage, and so it kind of rotates it around. And so these three things are happening at the same time in order to get the shoulder blade to actually go like this and go into upward rotation, which is what you should see on somebody's back when you do it, right? Now the issue presents when you get like some type of imbalance between these three, or something gets shut down or something's not moving appropriately. Then what you're gonna get is like maybe something shifts up before it goes in, or it's not moving at one of the tips because it's so tight and sore, or something's too weak. So instead of, you know, the serratus pulling everything around like it should, maybe these two are just elevating and it's winging out the shoulder blade or whatever it is. So you can get all sorts of issues with that, and the things that are always like fighting against those that you have to be aware of is the things that bring it back down into that packed shoulder position, which is, did I put this? Yeah, which is your levator scap on that top tip, the pec minor, which actually sits on the front, which is why we have the little circular thing. This is a back view of the shoulder blade. This they could call the king of compensators. So like often whenever I'm like looking at somebody who's got a shoulder problem and we see that there's a shoulder blade movement issue, the pec minor is like this super, super strong muscle. Are you aware of this muscle much? Do you thought about it really? So like I'm just gonna bring you over here so that the camera can see too. But so the pec minor, I'm gonna front you toward the camera so you can feel it, because it's easier for me to touch it on you and feel. So like if you imagine like your shoulder blade sitting up here in the tip, then like your pec minor, instead of the pec major being like this big muscle that spans out like this, your pec minor is a small muscle that goes like this, and then it fingers into the shoulder blade here. And it's short and it's super, super strong. So if I dig around on you and I dig into this area, you feel like there's tightness and tension, it's kind of painful.
Yeah.
That area connected to the shoulder blade cranks down like this really heavily. So when people get this crank down like this and they can't get their shoulder blade back, the pec minor is doing a ton of that. So it's like, it's important to realize that too, because you could just try to address a bunch of back stuff when you're trying to free up the shoulder blade, but it could be that pec that's actually cranking it down and not allowing it to actually raise up and rotate properly. So you got the levator scap, you know, that's like more of a neck muscle, your pec minor that's cranking forward, so you gotta make sure your pecs are loose enough for shoulder blade movement, and then the rhomboids, right? Like, so in between there and the spine can get super, super tight. And so we need enough upward rotation for the shoulder to actually go up into position. But like, we teach this position on a bench press, right? Yeah. And so like, So when we teach bench press, just take me through real quick. What's the cues you give somebody for their shoulders on a bench press?
Almost like kind of round the back, puff out the chest, so it's
Yep.
you're just in that locked, set position.
Yeah.
And then have that arch in your back too, so that already kind of put tension all up in the back.
Yeah. And why do we ask them to be in this position on a bench press?
Just because everything's just locked and loaded there. So you just use everything strongly.
Yeah, like two big things, right? It's like we have to have some type of stable platform to actually press off of, and if things are moving too much, then they're too unstable. We're relying on too many small muscle groups to have to stabilize the shoulder blade. So let's lock it back into one position, and also have to open up the shoulder enough to give access to the pec. And as soon as that shoulder blade is rolled forward at all, like the pec's just like not involved in the push through. So we teach that people to be in this position all the time when we bench press. Then we go and we do overhead press, and all of a sudden we've strengthened the shit out of basically all these muscles, locking it into position. And then we tell them that they have to be able to use these muscles. And so then we run into problems where they can't actually get that full shoulder blade range of motion, right? And so that's what's really important is I think like we used to cue on shoulder, like overhead press and stuff like that. We used to cue a lot of this, shoulders back, lock your shoulders in place. And have you like taught that or been taught that before?
Yeah.
Where it's like, if I'm gonna go to an overhead barbell press, I'm gonna lock my shoulders into position. Like go ahead and like, can I have you take your shirt off?
No, I don't want to.
You don't actually want to? Okay, that's totally fine. But like, so do this for me and like feel this position. So if like you act like you're gonna do a barbell press and you pull your shoulders back and you lock them into position and you try to keep that as you go overhead, like what happens?
It just feels like you're squeezing everything.
It feels constrained at the top, right? And then like, so what you're doing, because you're not getting the range of motion necessary in this upward rotation, you're basically taking space away from that humeral head where it can actually move. And so what happens is that's where people get an impingement type of feeling. They lock themselves into this position. Usually they're pulling it up anyways to get into that position. And then when they go overhead, they just all of a sudden, they don't have anywhere else to go because they can't get the shoulder range of motion. And so then they start to kind of hit that wall, they hit that ceiling. They can push there over and over again, but then eventually like they get that front impingement that you hear people talk about. Oh, I got a pinching sensation in the front of my shoulder. And so it's important when we go to actually teach, because we're going to be doing an overhead press alternating in the next program, that we actually teach people to think of this as I'm going to keep my rib cage down, my chest is posturally still up, I'm getting a little bit of thoracic extension, but I'm not pinning my shoulder blades back. So we can still say, oh, I still want to keep my chest up, I want to get thoracic extension, but then when I actually fully do an overhead press, especially single arm, I want to think of it as just like this upward rotation. I want to get a scooping position, right? Yeah. So it's like if I was teaching you, and I'm not going to have you take your shirt off or anything, but if you came over here so that the camera can see you too, and you face this way, and I had you pin your shoulder blades back like this and keep your chest up, and then try to press single arm overhead, you're going to get that same feeling that you got this tension up here, this is too closed in, you're not clearing the shoulder. Then you bring it back down, I say, okay, relax this, rib cage is down, and now I want you to press overhead by scooping, and you scoop up and overhead, and then you rotate through it, boom, now all of a sudden you have all that space open for your shoulder to go into, right? And so it's crazy important that we teach people to be able to actually clear that. And so that's what we're going to be going into. And if you notice that people are aggressively coming back like this, then we need to teach them that it's okay for them to round forward. This is why I actually love the kettlebells, because the front rack position that we have to be in order to do our overhead pressing makes people go into this position, which is a better position for their shoulder work to actually open up overhead. You know, the problem becomes when you have people locked into this position too, and we see it all the time. Like, I probably have problems with being too locked into this and not clearing properly, because what I notice, and we talk about this, right? Everybody's good at single arm. As soon as you go to double arm, and both of these have to do it at the same time, I just don't have it. And like usually for us, because we do a lot of bodybuilding work and just people in general like their row work, it's the rhomboids being way stronger than the serratus anterior. Because like we're doing rows, the rhomboids are getting work. We're doing bench press, the rhomboids are getting work. Even the way we teach push-ups a lot of time, we're teaching them to pull, like people teach people to pull their shoulders back excessively because they want them to get in their pec. Rhomboids are getting work. And then that serratus is never getting any work, so it's just losing the battle all day. And then you're just, you're going to put work into other places because, so here's your big question. Like if you can't get upward rotation, nobody's identifying it, nobody's teaching you, and then you're going to get into an overhead position no matter what because your coach just told you to, where are you going to get that extra motion from? Like you're not getting it from the shoulder blade, so what's going to happen?
You're going to get hurt. feel like
Yeah, you might.
something's gonna just overcompensate.
So let's try it real quick. So like step out so the camera can see you again, and like do that pack shoulder blade thing. I'm gonna have you turn towards me so the cameras can see you. Pack those shoulder blades like crazy, and then go ahead and go into that upward position. Yep. So go ahead and do it where you like drive forward.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. We keep it there. There you go. And you run out of position. What's happening? Where are you getting it from? All this arch,
yeah.
right? So if you lock, so go into that position again. Pull your shoulder blades backward. Lock this down. So you can't do. It's harder to do both,
Yeah.
right? So if you pin those back now, there you go. And now you try to go up into position. What the hell happens? It starts to become really constrained,
Yeah.
right? And so that's why it's like we want the rib cage to be down. That should be the primary cue. And then they can clear through the shoulder and get through. But if they can't, or if they're just constrained, whether it's like their lats are tight or anything else, and they get up to this position, they want to get overhead, they're either going to get it, most likely not, but some women are like super lax through their arm bones, so they'll just like end up getting there. And then it'll just get stretched out through the musculature around the humerus. Or most likely is people are just they're gonna get here and then they're gonna go like this to finish, and then they start cueing like it's my lower back that does all the work as I press overhead. So it, like if the shoulder blade doesn't move around the rib cage properly, like you end up having all sorts of problems, right? Okay, cool. So let's see here. So alive. All right, let's talk about push-up. It's because it's the same thing we just talked about. So like, go ahead and show me like a couple really good push-ups. I don't know if you can move this set so you can see him, but. So like, let's put a couple restrictions on it, right? So like, we want you to do good push-ups, so like your rib cage is gonna be tucked in.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna flare that. So be strict about that part and then go where you'll go, okay? There you go. Nice. Those look really good. So those are awesome. So like, the things that I'm looking for, and the reason I'm showing this too is because we're talking to the camera a little bit, but like, if you're keeping your rib cage in and it gets this slightly rounded upper back position, it's like you need to be able to spread your shoulder blades out and round around. And that's like why a push-up is actually really good for shoulder health. But people will teach push-up. You'll see this, like people are gonna come out of college, tons of people are gonna come out of college this year, and they're gonna teach a push-up like a bench press. They're gonna tell people to pin back here and then to not move and just do this.
Yeah.
And that might be okay for getting into your shoulders, but then your shoulder health is gonna go to shit. And then what we see, right, is that like when people do that, they're usually choosing that lumbar extension again too, or they get down into this position. They've taught themselves to do that. They can't round their shoulder blades around their rib cage. And so then they get down to this position. It's a hard push-up. And what do? They do this. You know what I mean? Did you see that? They come down like this. They push up and they just arch through their back because all they have access to is what they've taught themselves to be strong at, which is this, instead of actually being able to round everything out, which is a much stronger position, better for the shoulders if you're going to do anything that's overhead ever. It's like a bench press, if you think about it. It's like such a shortened range of motion at the shoulder, right? It's like we're basically doing 90 degrees.
Right.
That's it. Like nothing more than that. Cool. You got any questions right now? Is this boring or is it making sense?
It's making sense.
So one of the things like to talk about, we'll go into, let me see what I've missed here. So then this same thing goes for like, we'll talk about rows at the end and what the issues are there, but like, if you think about like lateral raises like we're doing in class now, it's same thing. If you tell them to have this packed shoulder position, then like go ahead and try that, or I can show you it from my end. But like if I have this packed shoulder position and then I'm trying to do raises, I'll tell you where I feel that right now, and all I feel it is my upper. Because my body's trying to get movement, but I'm not allowing it. And so basically I'm just locking myself into that position, and I might get shoulder movement, but I don't know if this is necessarily cueing healthy shoulder movement, like the actual like coordination that's necessary. So we should allow them to do this kind of actual scooping around because they're still in our deltoids, and I actually feel less in my upper traps than I did when I pinned it back like that. So like it's almost like the cueing that's always good is not necessarily pin the shoulder blades back, but it's pull the chest up into thoracic extension, right? It's thoracic extension is nice posture for me to be here, but I'm still allowing my shoulder blades to move freely. And I think that doesn't, you know, the general cueing of shoulders down and back like doesn't allow for both those things to happen at the same time, right? Let's see here. We talked about where you get the extra movement from. Too much glenohumeral humeral. Okay, so let's talk about this now. If we, let's say you get somebody, and I know this isn't a physical therapy unit or whatever, but this is stuff like you may want to do one day. I didn't think I was ever going to be doing this shit, and now the most common thing I see when people come in here for a shoulder injury is they don't have enough movement in this upward rotation. So like, we talked about it a little bit last week, but like what's going to happen if you see that somebody's not getting full upward rotation? How do you fix it? Like if you were just looking at this and you're like, okay, I got these lines, I know what muscles are doing what do I need to do here? If I'm going to achieve more of this, what do I need to do to these 6 muscles? You can take your time. Yeah, you need to train them, and how so? And you can say like, okay, I don't know how to train this, I don't know how to train this, whatever. But it's like, okay, go ahead. I don't want to give you the answer right away.
No, I guess I know.
Yeah. So like this is where I like to think about things like a guide wire, like a system like a tower, radio tower that you see out in the field, and it's got these guide wires that go like this.
Yeah.
And like in these situations where something's not moving properly, then the tower's like this. This is way too tight. This is getting stretched out and long. And all we need to do is we need to fix that, right? And so we want to look at the things that are probably clamping down and being overactive. And you can treat this as like kind of a global issue. Especially if you didn't know, if you looked at somebody, you had them go through this quick test where they raise their arms overhead and you see that their shoulder blades don't move properly, then you're going to say, okay, I need to strengthen the ability for these to do their work. And I need to tone these suckers down and give them some length and give them some relaxation. And that's just the guide wire. That's your first stop, and like probably 90% of problems are going to go away right there. So 99% of the time, when I'm dealing with somebody who doesn't have upward rotation in their shoulder blade, I'm telling them, let's foam roll your rhomboids, and you're going to get up into your neck a little bit, so you kind of hit 2 birds with 1 stone. Whether that's a foam roller or the yellow circle or whatever we have, get them to reach or to give themselves a bear hug so they get the shoulder separation, and then really massage the muscles in there. This is another thing where if these muscles are really tight and overactive, sure, you can stretch them. But once you start stretching the shoulder, like, I mean, feel around, do this with your shoulder. Like, how hard is it to figure out whether you're stretching the back of the shoulder versus in between the shoulder blades? And like the typical person, not gonna know the difference between that. So with a massage and like giving them specific cues, you can get these loosened up. So foam rolling between the shoulder blades. Maybe you get them up into a lacrosse ball up in the neck a little bit just to make sure that's toned down. Most of the time I don't mess with that much. Pec minor though is one that's huge. Like especially if you have them, like you try to get them to retract and you notice that they're cranked in like this and they might be able to retract, but this stays forward all the time. I'm gonna try to get this opened up. 2 ways of doing that. You can foam roll them, but that's gonna be more for like pec major.
Yeah.
The way that you're gonna get them is the lacrosse ball. Let me grab one real quick. I promise there's gonna be an active element to this in a little bit. But so take this, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this and you're gonna put your arm behind your back, try to get your shoulder. This is gonna show obviously like whether you're cranked forward or whether you can open up.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna get from this kind of angle, you're gonna get down, like I said, like there's fingers basically that come into your rib cage right here, and those areas are gonna be super crazy tight. So a lot of times you might even do this right now, and then you'll go, holy shit, my shoulder's looser.
Yeah.
You know? So you wanna push into that, roll around, and then the other place that I have people spend time is right along the rib of your collarbone, right underneath. Those areas for the pec, kind of like on a square right there, go ahead and mess around with that. Try to find that area. Those are gonna be where you really get a lot of loosening up so that everything can move properly.
Yeah, tender.
Yeah, right? Almost everybody's super tight through there, especially if you bench press a lot. And so like, I don't know how easy it was to see on Alex, but while he's doing that pec minor, like we were talking about, comes from the spine of the scapula here, comes down, and then it inserts on the rib cage, kind of like finger muscles. They're super short, they get super tight, they get super strong. And you can usually find it by like, if you feel around in this upper quadrant here, you'll just find like some stringy muscles that are just like super tight, and you push in on them, and you'll get like a spasming or a tightness. The lacrosse ball is the best thing for it. But that thing's called the king of compensators for a reason. Like if the shoulder is feeling unstable or it thinks it needs to protect itself, this thing will lock down all day. We also don't do ourselves any favors by working on computers all day, driving like this with one hand looking cool all day. Like it just gives it a chance to shorten up, and then we get terrible at retraction. We get terrible at upward rotation of the shoulders. Do you feel that at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense?
Right here.
So once, like, and this is almost always how I'll take people through it. It's like we'll go through, we'll massage all this stuff. I'll ask them what their opinion is. Like they might say, oh, my shoulder feels looser already. But like, you could do that all day. And if you never get these reactivated and strengthened, like you're just gonna tighten back up again. And so then you want to make sure that these are getting tight. Most of the time people are, like their upper trap's not a problem. I'm not saying that nobody is a problem, but anybody who's in our gym gets so much upper trap work because of the rowing and the pressing that we do, then most of the time what I see is this is actually overactive a little bit, and that the serratus anterior and the lower trap are underactive. And so like for the lower trap work, do you know like a good exercise for that? Think back to like rehab exercises. Yeah.
Some rows.
Yep. Well, some rows will work, but like if you think about it, if you rowed with your elbow down, like you just said, that's a position for this to continue to pack, right?
Yeah.
And we're actually trying to get this to reduce activity. Yeah. Yep. No, that's good though. This is why we do this, is like for you to think through it. Think, okay, well, what do I do that's in this position?
Lateral raises.
Yeah, potentially lateral raises, but you're close. Y raises. Like there's a super easy way, like a lying, like this is why in all these PT scenarios, you'll see people doing incline Y raises.
Yeah.
And that's why strength and conditioning coaches love it, is because they want to be able to isolate this lower trap. It's one of the only ways to do that, right? Anytime that you start bringing multiple joints into it, right? I'm bending at the elbow, I'm trying to do a row, other things are going to take over, right? Like my elbow muscles are going to take over, maybe like my rhomboids and my lats are going to take over. But if I can do a straight arm and just do the angle, then I'm going to make sure that I'm isolating this. Maybe I'm isolating this a little bit, but the whole thing's going to strengthen. But this is where you're really going to feel it when you do that Y exercise. So Y exercises for that are awesome. And then serratus anterior exercise. Now we went over this last time, but I want to make sure that these guys see it, and I also want to test another one. Could I have you run in and grab that orange band that she got down? I think it's on her desk. Sorry, Em. Thank you. So let's go over probably the most common one. I'm also a fan of foam rolling the serratus anterior too, because whenever something is trying to work really hard, but it's not getting length, it gets stiff and it loses blood flow too. So a lot of times like a little bit of massage will actually allow it to contract better. It's not just for loosening things, it's also for allowing them to it's not just for lengthening, I guess what I'm saying is sometimes you foam roll a muscle and it actually contracts better too. And so sometimes you can do a little bit of that, but then the way we want to get that activated is we have to think, how can we get the rib cage to stay in one place and teach ourselves to pull the shoulder blade around the rib cage? And so then the cueing for this becomes super important. Thank you. So the first one that's kind of easier because it's pinning this to the wall is, I don't know if you can see this or not, Stet, but if you watch me from the side, if Alex watched me, and I know we went over this, but I'm also going to just take you through it again for this, is like I said, you have to make sure that this whole thing's locked in and we're not getting compensations from the rib cage, the lumbar, everything else, so that we can just try to isolate, are we moving the shoulder blade around? And so I'm gonna get in this karate chop, I'm gonna get close. I have to get the rib cage down, so I'm gonna crunch that sucker down. I'm gonna allow myself to spread my shoulder blades out, get them in a position already where they are ready to go around the rib cage, and then I'm driving my hands in. So right here, I'm already kind of starting that upward rotation position. I'm rounding around the rib cage, and then as I go overhead, I'm really thinking, can I spread out those muscles and then come back down? And my initial thing, even when I just felt there, is I wanted to elevate my rib cage to get out of that position because it's weak. So I got to keep that rib cage down, and I drive up, and it's short range of motion at first, and I can feel my neck wanting to do too much work. Like I clearly have problems here too. But if I'm super intentional about it, I can actually start to feel kind of this lat and serratus anterior together kind of firing up and getting a pump. So go ahead and try that real quick, and then we'll try a banded version too. But it's like if you're always asking yourself, what do I want to move and what I don't want to move? There you go. I would even step in a little bit and then really rib cage down, widen this out. There you go. And now push into that sucker. There you go. Good. Good. The whole time thinking, how can I spread? And it's going to be it's something you never cue, right? But then hopefully what you get is you get a little bit of fatigue, you get a little pump through here. Yeah, you might have been a little low.
My angle.
There you go. The angle of your dangle, huh? There you go. Good. Give it a few more reps and then tell me if you don't start feeling kind of this area pump up on you a little bit. I can feel it, honestly, when you go up like that. I can feel those finger muscles right there. That's why it's my favorite muscle. It's my favorite muscle on the body. It looks so cool. It looks like when you're shredded down, it looks like fingers are sitting here. And the whole thing is just trying to pull your shoulder blades open. Good. Did you feel it?
Yeah, I'm saying more so in my traps is probably not doing it.
You feel them fighting a little bit?
Yeah.
So and that's just like any other exercise that's bodybuilding that we ask people to do, and we're like, hey, continue to do it because you're gonna feel the muscles that are supposed to be working better as you get in tune with it. Same thing with this. The other way, and it might be easier because that one's a little bit weird with the roll on it, is for you to be able to pull this around your rib cage here and have it hook under your shoulder blades and do the same thing and do a wall slide like this so it's more resisted, so I'm still gonna get that rounding. I'm gonna press up. Ooh, that feels good. I come back down. I'm gonna press up again. And come back down, and I start to feel that pretty quickly, but go ahead and try that for like 5-6 reps and see if you don't feel that.
Like this?
Yep, so you'll still karate chop hands into the wall, and you can go ahead and bring this out actually. Some people will do this stuff with a mini band around their wrists so they get external rotation, and then just try to keep this along the wall as much as you can. So like you're elbowing somebody into here, and then you're just gonna slide that, there you go. So then, you know, because you forced all that to happen, now you're making this happen, right? Go ahead and come back down, good. Good, spread it, there you go. And so I think this is just one of the muscles that like most of us are weakest at, because we love bench pressing, we love doing all these different exercises with our shoulders back and down. And you know, there's nothing wrong, like it makes you look really good when you got your posture like this, like military posture, but then that's all fun and games until you can't reach overhead or your shoulder hurts and you're like, oh shit, for years I've been neglecting the ability to do this as well. Yeah. And so then this carries over into our row work too. So do you have any questions before we move on?
Nope.
Is this useful at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so like I think we covered this, right? So we're gonna make sure we loosen the pec minor and the rhomboids. We'll make sure that we strengthen lower trap and serratus anterior. There can be a little bit of upper trap work, but you would be able to tell, like if somebody's really having a one-sided problem and there's an upper trap issue, it's just gonna be atrophied. Like you're just not gonna see that it actually has any muscle mass to it, and then that's easy, right? We just do a little bit of shrug work and we're good. Shrug work or T work. So then we'll come over here real quick, and this is one of the things I was talking to Jiggy Lou about the other day doing his core competencies, and I thought it was super useful, which is talking through bench supported rows, kind of knowing what we know now about how to activate these muscles. And like, because if you think about it, if you think about like what makes like a back look really freaking good, like a big back, especially an upper back.
The V shape.
Yeah, the V shape. So definitely the lats for sure. So we can talk about how we're going to get more of those. So we want lats. If we want like a really aesthetic back, what other muscles kind of pop out as like the ones that when you see them, they're like 3D and shit. Do.
All of it.
All of it. Every single muscle. You don't like being put on the spot like this, do you?
No.
So, I mean, I think about the rhomboids for sure. So like those, when you got the big prominent. And Tracy, can you come over here into the camera for us? Do you have 2 seconds?
Sure.
So like even if, because he doesn't want to take his shirt off, so we're gonna have you.
I'm not taking my shirt
No, you're not gonna take your shirt off. But if we look at her back and we say like, okay, well, what's prominent about this back that makes it look big and strong? It's like, so like Alex said, we got lats here, right? We got a big lat mass here that gives the shape, the V shape of the back. And then I would argue like if you start like rolling your shoulders forward, or if you go ahead and do a few rows for me. There you go. Yep, go ahead and do a few rows for me. So the other muscles that end up being really prominent that look good in a big back is the rhomboids, so that's between the shoulder blades here. And then of course like her upper traps, right? And so like the way that we're gonna train upper traps and what elbow positions we need to be in has gotta be different than how we're gonna train rhomboids and how we're gonna train lats. And so using what we just talked about the need for the shoulder blade to be able to move around the rib cage, we can be way more intentional about how we build bigger muscles in these positions. So you're good.
Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to use you as a visual. So now, I want you to test this out. I'll get you, we don't have to have super heavy weights for this, but when we do a bent over row, what's like, I think it's important to keep in mind that there are multiple different versions of bent over row that we can do, and we've probably done multiple different versions since you've been here, although we do one more than the rest, which is, we always have trouble getting isolated in rear delt and upper trap areas without doing like face pulls. And so I like the elbows out version. So go ahead and, just for the camera and everything for us to start talking through it, go ahead and show me and talk me through what your cueing would be if you were gonna teach somebody this bench supported row.
Just flare out the elbows. Flare out the elbows as you roll.
Yep.
Up. Lift the chins as you're kind of getting to the top. Just
Yep.
kind of get a little more squeeze, but like if you're going elbows out, you're getting
Yep.
more upper back, kind of mid back.
Yep.
Compared to when your elbows are tucked, you're getting kind of pretty much straight.
Yeah, dead on. It's like, it's line of pull, right? It's like if I'm gonna flare the elbows out, I'm trying to build the muscles right along here, upper traps. I'm getting a little bit of the rhomboid action, but I'm getting rear delt and everything too. And then you go ahead and do it just like you said it. And I want you to feel, like really think and feel what you're feeling when you're doing this. Go ahead and do exactly like you said. Good. So he's getting a little bit of this thoracic extension. One thing that's a quick note is like, one of the reasons we do this bench supported row is so that people can't use anything below here to help compensate. Like he can't throw with his hips. He can't arch through his lower back. All he can do is go through his upper back. Go ahead and do like 2 more reps there. And then as he's getting this thoracic extension, the reason he has to get that thoracic extension in this position, go ahead and put him down, is so that he can actually get these shoulders back far enough, go ahead, and get like a nice shortened squeeze of the upper back. That changes if we say that we want to build different muscles. And so now what I want you to do, just as to be able to feel this, is yes, just like you are rounded into the bench, now don't pull your chest up off the bench and do that same exercise with the elbows flared out. Okay, nice. Yep, keep the elbows flared out. You see, like the first thing he does is he wanted to pull the elbow in there, right? Right? So like it might be too hard to do even. Does that feel shitty?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like tell me what it feels like and I'm going to repeat it to the camera.
Maybe do a few more.
Yeah, go ahead and do something. Be really strict about the elbows out and you're keeping this rounded. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, I feel like it's fired up my traps a lot.
Yeah.
Like my neck off. Instead of fighting to keep like my back around, but I'm like
Yep.
trying to stick my head up.
Feels shitty, right? So like because he's not getting any thoracic extension, it's putting him in a position where like the muscles that we wanted to train are no longer in a good position to pull. And so his neck is now in the most shortened position. So when he goes with the elbows out to do that, all he's feeling is upper trap and up into the neck though. So it's not like good upper trap activation where we're letting the neck relax and just being prominent there. He's probably going to get a ton of tension and like a really bulky neck. So maybe a freaking boxer would want to do this. But the point there is that if we want to train this upper back position, we do need a little bit of that thoracic extension. Now, let's talk about the different ways we can do this. So if we kind of talked about it just like we do with a bench press, there's the elbow out direction to do this. There's kind of a happy medium 45-degree angle that's awesome for scapular movement to do this. And then there's an elbow in version. Let's go ahead and do fist distance between your rib cage and your elbow. Okay, so like kind of normal 45-degree angle type of shit, like a push-up. And then what I want you to do is allow yourself to melt around the bench and get that pull back. And go ahead and go through a few reps and just see how that feels different and think about what muscles are feeling different than what you just did. There you go. Even give it a little bit more elbow out. Stop wrapping around as much. Kind of like you're still pointing the elbows back. There, that's perfect. And so you guys probably can't see from the back angle here, but what I'm seeing is his shoulder blades are spreading really nicely and then they're getting pinched together. But it's not that upper pinch up in his upper back like it was before. Just because we changed the elbow angle, we're now working through this mid back way more effectively. You can put him down. How'd that feel? So I would argue for shoulder health, that's the best version of that row because we're getting enough shoulder blade range of motion. He's getting it to spread out, he's getting it to come back, but we're not elevating into the neck and he's not super lat dominant and locked in. Now, so that would probably be like a really, really good exercise for like your rhomboids, right? And I mean, where did you feel that best?
Kind of lats for like
Lats?
rhomboids.
Yep, lats and rhomboids, right? So then as soon as he brings the elbows in, the lats are going to be in a shorter position to pull. He's going to be able to use heavier weights, but because he's getting that shoulder blade spread and pulling it back together, it's going to be better for this chunk of meat in the middle of the back to develop and less in the upper back and the upper traps. Now the last one I want you to do is you can go ahead and test, or like let's just have you go super elbow in, okay? So I want you to think of it more as like a squeeze back. And the first thing I want you to test is I want you to go into that thoracic extension. So as if I just cued you to go. Chest up, shoulders back. Now I want you to stay there. And I want you to row the entire time with your elbows back like that. There you go. So right there, yep, keep it and just keep it there. Okay. So now what we're asking him to do, which I don't think is right, but we're asking him to do it, is he's basically keeping his shoulder blades really stiff here. He's just condensing, but then he's got his elbows down by his side. Go ahead and rest and tell me what you felt there.
Straight lats.
Straight lats. So all he feels is the lats here. And one of the reasons that you feel the lats so well there is by go ahead and go into that thoracic extension. I think this is why people do this all the time. They pull themselves in this position because this already just got shortened just by putting yourself in that position. So it's going to be easier for you to contract that. However, if we're thinking about total muscle size, I would argue that like you want full range of motion, right? You want muscle size both in stretch and in squeeze. And so here's a better way, I think, to train the lats for this exercise is now think neutral spine, just like we were talking about earlier, where it's like, I'm going to let the rib cage collapse. I'm going to be okay in that position that you didn't like for the elbows out. Now train in that position locked in alone. and do the elbows right next to your side. And be really strict about not letting your chest come off. And it's probably gonna be something you haven't had to do a lot of. There you go, good. Excellent, nice. Do a few more reps and then I want you to tell me what you feel there. Good. So one of the things, like, go ahead and do a few more reps while I talk about this, just so you really get the feeling of it. One of the things we're doing now is we just locked his rib cage into position, and we're forcing the shoulder blade to move around the rib cage a little bit more. He's getting way more of a stretch here at the bottom, and then he's having to squeeze back, but the rib cage isn't compensating with him coming up and down. And so now we're asking certain muscles to do a better job. Now, what did you feel there?
Doing the same thing, but a little bit harder.
Yeah, a little bit harder, right? So like, I would argue if we ripped Alex's shirt off, don't get too crazy, ladies. If we ripped Alex's shirt off and we showed that exercise, especially if we did it to somebody like who you used to work with, Chris, like somebody who's got all that definition in their back, that we would see kind of like more of a lower lat Christmas tree type of look to these lats flexing right around the spine. And you get a better contraction there than if you pulled up, because you're going to get kind of this more teres major feeling of lat up here in the shortened position. Whereas if you let yourself round out, you're going to make this muscle here have to pull and shorten. And so you can get more of that V shape in that position, I think. Personal opinion, but does that track with what you're feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah? So I think the general overall concept here, though, is that like picking one position all the time for all your pressing your shoulder work is probably a bad idea, and being like a smart thinking trainer with what positions are actually like putting what muscles in a stretched or a stressed position is going to make you way better. If you were a bodybuilding coach, you would want to know everything we just talked about so that you know how to develop certain parts of the back without overdoing other parts of the back. Otherwise, if you just do things one way all the time, you're just going to develop the same back over and over again, and you're going to have the same imbalances. That makes sense? Cool. So I think generally, if we're looking for healthy shoulders for somebody, let's say somebody does have issues with getting full shoulder range of motion because their shoulder blade doesn't move appropriately, yes, you can do what we talked about, getting the rhomboids and the pec minor to loosen up, and then strengthening serratus anterior and lower trap. But then we always have to reintegrate this into movement that's actually going to keep it. And so I would argue that your best exercises are not all those little rehab exercises we did. It's probably 3 exercises. It's this bent over row, where he's doing it the middle way that he did it, where he got a lot of shoulder blade movement, where it's just the elbows out at 45 degrees. Excellent. Doing a push-up where you're really intentional about pulling the shoulders back on the way down and spreading the shoulders out on the way up is going to be awesome for teaching shoulder blade range of motion. And then the one that Eric Cressy and his team use all the time is the landmine press, because it's really easy to intentionally get the rib cage down and press through and wrap that shoulder around and teach yourself to upwardly rotate with the landmine. So those would be 3 tools in your toolbox if you're dealing with somebody who's got this locked back posture and they have no idea how to move their shoulder blades around their rib cage. Those are the things you're going to practice. Dude, that's all I got. You got any questions? No, we did enough? Stuff makes sense though?
Yeah, pretty good.
That's all she wrote.